That's not what the case is. No, I think they're
Hello, welcome to IENAPLAN. We will start the meeting. So, everything here is done under the Note 12, which is essentially say that everything you say is covered by the statement. Please refer to the additional documentation on the website.
Gotta use the light. Yes, the light.
The current agenda is one topic, IPR by Andrew. We have asked for a few volunteers to provide to do the scribing. So Ted will do the Jabber's scribing, and Elliot will do the minute taking. If you have your own notes, please send it to us, and will be useful. Any changes or suggestions or modifications to the agenda? Okay, thank you. Andrew?
So as Andrew is coming up to do his presentation about the IPR, just a couple of words about scoping for today. As you will no doubt recall, this working group achieved consensus on its main work item a year ago or more, and that was the IETF's contribution to the IANA transition process, our contribution for the protocol parameters. So the plan has consensus, the plan is in place, and we are now at the point of discussing the various paths towards implementation. Today's discussion is an elaboration of material that's already been shared on the mailing lists in terms of next steps towards handling the IPR for the IANA transition. So what we would like out of today's sessions is comments, thoughts, reviews, things that should be considered further in this process. We are not seeking consensus on any particular points today. So I think that's that.
And finally, we would prefer to have questions at the end of the presentation.
Hi, I'm Andrew, and that isn't very loud, is it? How's that? Okay, next, please. All right, so you remember that we all agreed to these things, and there were really a few things that we asked for. We asked for those first two bullets, which is that we have things in the public domain, and we also asked for this confirmation that there's going to be a smooth transition, and then also another community asked that we include this piece related to the provision of the IANA services. So the idea here is that this this ends up with a neutral third party. Next, please. So these ones, they're being taken care of the way the working group told us to. The working group said, go away, IOC, and implement this in the correct way, and that is in process. And people are busy doing that. What's going to happen is these items are going to be included in the regular supplemental agreement that happens regularly between the IETF and ICANN in its IANA role. Next, please. This one, however, this was a little different. And this principles thing, the idea was that the RIRS asked that we have the IPR, which means basically just the trademarks around IANA and the domain names related to IANA. The one that we really care about is IANA.org, but there are a couple of others. So those are supposed to end up at the IETF trust. And in order to do that, we needed some principles in order that we could tell the lawyers, go away and write this agreement. So that's what these principles are. There was a group of us, some of us on the IOC, and some people from the RIRs, and some people from the ICANN's community, and we got together and we wrote this document. And I circulated this, I don't know, a few weeks ago, quite a few weeks ago now, right, in February. Oh yes, February 17th. Look, I put it on the slide. So the idea here is that the lawyers will take this away and they'll write an agreement. And the idea here is that we want to make sure that we're all in agreement about this, and that's why this is open. Next, please. All right, so this is what it says. The first thing is that the IETF trust becomes an owner of these trademarks. The IETF trust is already doing this because it's got the trademark on IETF. The IETF trust becomes the registrant, the so-called owner, but in domain name registration things, we don't have any owners, we've got registrants of this domain name. And there's some other names, but IANA.org is where this stuff is run right now, right? So that's the one that we really care about. Now, there's a bunch of rules in there in order to prevent operational surprises. And you can look at the details in the document if you want. I encourage you to do that. But basically, the idea is that we can make sure that that everything runs smoothly. We've got another thing in there, which is basically that there's this advisory body, and it tells the IETF trust what to do. And that telling what to do is something that the IETF trust agrees to implement. However, it has to live within the bounds of trademark law, which is a key piece here. And then finally, of course, in order to make all of this work, the IETF trust has to license the whole thing back to the post-transition IANA so that they can do these things using the trademark and the domain name and so on. Next, please. All right, so this satisfies the need that we have, right? The trust is the neutral third party. What we concluded was we needed to know what the RIRs thought about that. The RIRs said, oh yes, the IETF trust, good neutral third party, they're satisfied with that. There was a little bit of discussion about this in the ICANN community, but ultimately they decided that the IETF trust is a neutral enough third party that they were okay with it. And I think part of that, to be honest with you, is pragmatics as well, right? The alternative here was really to set up a completely new organization, and nobody had the appetite to do that. So there's not a whole lot to do here, and we can do it quickly. There are a couple of other items here. I'm sorry I keep turning around and looking, but I don't have a monitor. A thing that I really want to emphasize is, as far as I can tell, this doesn't change the trust at all. So we don't need to make any changes to the trust. It doesn't change anything that the trust is already doing. It does these things, as I just said. And so I believe that this is also safe for us. All right, next, please. Now, there is this funny thing about the trust doing what it's told. So there's this, what's it called? Community coordination group. One thing I will tell you is that if you get ever involved in one of these kinds of things again, bring a notebook so you can write down all of the initials and acronyms and so on, because you just run out of time. So this is an advisory panel that basically tells the IETF trust, we want to do these things. And so it tells the IETF trust, we want to do these things for stuff that cuts across the entire IANA user community, and then things that are related only to one area, right? The 3 people from that community tell that. So it's a total of 9 people, 3 from the IETF, 3 from the RIRs, and 3 from the names community. And I think they haven't completely sorted out how they're going to define the names community, but it probably comes from, the various SOs and ACs. I don't know how. So that's what it does. Next, please. But there is this small issue. So there are just a couple of them. The first one is this issue of whether the trust can ever act unilaterally because it's the owner of the domain name. And the second one is this question about the trust versus community authority. The reason this is important is because normally what we want to do is we want the community to tell people what to do, right? And this is how we normally work around here. But there's a special thing about trademarks, and that is a trademark owner has to enforce its trademark. And so the trust ultimately has to be in the position to say, I know you community told us to do this, but actually that's not consistent with our duty for this trademark, and so we're not going to do it. And that's an important thing that we need to be aware of. It's a requirement of doing trademark. We're already doing this with the IOC today. If you told the IOC, don't renew the IETF trademark, the IOC would say, go pound sand. We have to. Next, please. Actually, it would be the trustees that would say that, but so the first thing here is this requirement to move to what I think of as legal time, which is not like internet time, right? You do a thing on internet time and you just do it and it takes effect right away. And so the purpose of these tricky rules around the domain name registration are to make sure that the trust couldn't just one day say, oh, and we're changing all the name servers on here, and too bad. So in order to protect the IANA operator, in order that they can do their job, they want that to be a notification process and for it to take a certain amount of time and so on. Now, right now, what the document says is that after so many days, and I think we recommended like between 5 and 10, but lawyers, please sort this out. Then the trust could in fact say, nope, we're going ahead anyway. And that's necessary so that, of course, if there's a dispute, somebody has the unambiguous authority to do something. And the idea here is that if you had 5 to 10 days or whatever the right number is that the lawyers will work out, then it would be possible for somebody to file a thing with a court, and the court would say, no, don't do that. And, you know, then we would move into legal processes, and all things would be fine in the sense that they ever are fine when you're into legal processes. So that's the one piece that's in there. Next, please. The other is this authority problem. And as I said, the trust has a fiduciary duty to enforce the trademark. So if the community said, don't bother with this, or if the community said, you need to allow this other party over there to use this trademark, and it turned out that what the party was doing was handing out the trademark to, you know, random people on the internet and saying, sure, slap this on the outside of your bus or whatever, then that would be a problem. And in fact, the trust must say, no, you're doing this outside of your authority, no matter what the community says under those circumstances, because the trust needs to make sure that the trademark is being used only within the bounds of the licensed use. And if it does anything outside of that, the trust actually has to enforce that. Otherwise, what happens is the trademark becomes invalid, and we don't want that. And in fact, if the trademark became invalid because the trust hadn't done that work, the trustees would be in trouble because they'd have failed to perform their fiduciary duty. So that's the reason for this. And this is already a situation, as I said, at the IETF. The trust today holds the IETF trademark, and this is why, you know, there are these annoying things that happen from time to time where somebody can't just put IETF on a T-shirt without getting a license. That's because of this very same issue. So we already have this problem today. Next, please. All right, the next thing, you know, if there are any tiny edits to these principles, then obviously we need to make them. I haven't seen any, so as far as I know, it's good to go. We're going to hand these principles to the lawyers and say, okay, now go and implement this. You know, come up with a real legal agreement that actually implements all of this. We're going to do that like next week. So if you have comments, you better get them in really soon. And I think that's everything, right? That's all I had to say.
So, comments or questions, race to the mic.
Hi, I'm John Levine. I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on the net. I mean, basically, the draft looks fine to me, and I have 2.5 comments. One is the language about exactly what the registrar has to do looks to me overspecified, and I would worry about the case where they come back and say, you know, we asked all 1,000 registrars and none of them offer exactly that bundle of services. So I would encourage you to genericize it to actually specify there needs to be this much, there needs to be at least 3 days of delay, and there needs to be notifications to the relevant parties.
So before you go on,
yes.
I can tell you that it's overspecified because of one of the parties insisting that it be overspecified. I can tell you that
I can't say that astonishes me.
I can tell you that there are at least 3 commercial companies that I know of that do all of those things.
Okay. Okay. The other thing is I don't see
Entire
hello
sound thing has gone here. Oh, there we go.
Oh, wait, we're back, sort of.
And me too. So yes, and that is a problem, and I don't think we have agreement about that. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. My second question was, who pays for the incremental costs of, for example, trademark maintenance fees, which can get expensive in multiple countries?
And I think the answer to that is you're right, and we don't have an answer to that. And since the trust agreed to do this, it seems that in some way it's the trust. ICANN has suggested that there would be some money set aside for this, but there's nowhere in any of the agreements that is specified yet.
Yes, and since there is no one behind me, I will ask one final question, which is I noticed there is no provision for setting up the operational rules for the CCG. So, for example, if a quorum of the CCG is 5 people show up at a meeting and 3 of them vote to tell the trust to do some dumbass thing, is that an instruction? And you don't know. My point is, none of us know. There's
Right.
no. I would be happier if it said that the CCG will define and publish its operating procedures.
So I can suggest that we put that in. I
Yeah. And
can't.
again, I don't care what they are, just
Right.
as long as we know.
I think actually that would be a good idea. So I wouldn't be surprised actually if the other communities just said yes, what a good idea. Because you're quite right, we don't have those in there. And as nearly as I can tell, there is nobody in the ICANN community who would be opposed to creating more procedures for anything. So
Well, yes, my particular.
It was a real pain to get all the negotiation done across all the communities. Thank you very much. And I think if you just say the CC thing has to work in an open and transparent manner with public minutes, I think it'd be fine.
well, I take John's point though that in fact having them specify in advance what quorum is before they have a decision to make never hurts. All right, I don't see anything else. I guess we're done.
World's fastest working group.
Thank you very much.
So
Exactly.
Son? Hello, 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 hello. Hi, everyone. We're trying to take some hums in the room right next door. So if people could take their conversations into the hallway, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, humdos. Humdos. We could do a humdos now.
We're tackling a problem that will last forever. But